They've campaigned on these big, bold ideas that were packaged in a way that resonated. They really communicated well at the election, but the policies behind that, and especially the policies that have subsequently been negotiated as part of the agreement, the coalition agreement, have done the other thing. And so desperate for power, they've given bigger tax cuts and New Zealand first higher spending. And now Nicola Willis is desperately running around trying to point the finger to us as to why they don't have any money. Well, there's a very simple thing why they don't have money. It's because they're giving tax cuts to mega landlords. Don't do that, and they'll have a bit more money. It's quite simple. Yeah. It all added up before the election. Now it doesn't add up. And they came under the pump at the last election for putting out a plan that quite clearly did not add up. But now they've actually reduced the revenue streams, so it doesn't add up more.
Yeah, we used a clip from last week with you with the Bish, as we call him, talking about their the Inter-Islander ferry, where on the same day on separate channels, both him and Nicola Willis were saying exactly the same thing. Like the talking points were that clear. And the one thing that the media didn't seem to pick up on, the media being the interviewers at the time, is when both of these people said, for every dollar we spend on the ferries, it's one less dollar that we can spend on schools and hospitals and roads. But no one said to them, what about every dollar you're giving back to landlords? What about every dollar you're giving in tax cuts? That's also a dollar that you can't spend on schools and roads and hospitals.
That's right. Because expenditure is obviously money outgoing. Once it's spent, it's spent. It's not normally ongoing, especially with infrastructure projects like the ferry. But reducing revenue is an ongoing thing. So the ferry might have been a $3 billion expenditure, but if you're giving $1 billion away in tax cuts a year, it doesn't take long to catch up pretty quick.
For sure.
And so, I was quite struck. I was at home in Wairarapa over the weekend, and normally people are at this time of year, straight after an election, we're coming up to Christmas, they don't really want to talk about politics. The number of times people that mentioned to me the ferries, they couldn't quite understand it. It basically went along the lines of, look, we get it. It's more expensive than what was intended, but hey, so is everything. Try building a house at the moment. If you build a house in the last 2 years, it's going to be a hell of a lot more expensive at the end of the project than they said it would be at the start. But if we don't build them now, we're going to have to build them one day, and you can guarantee they'll be a hell of a lot more expensive then. So sometimes you just got to suck it up and get on with it. And instead they're trying to spin it. And I think a pretty short-term political gain, I'm not sure it's landing, but we're going to be facing a massive issue on these ferries in the future. And everyone, whether they're right-wing or left-wing, can see it. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and also, of course, we talk things out on the show, and we have people in the comments also educating us, which is great fun. Treating that ferry like it is a road of national significance. It is the state highway, and they've promised to do a lot of work on our state highways. Yes, it's a watery one, but it is how the car gets from that state highway one to that state highway one. So, and just the idea of getting a second-hand, not fit for purpose is what we've always done. It just, I'm. Because it's not that they had to find $3 billion either, like you just said, because they'd budgeted like 1.8 or 2. So it's like they had to find another one. So actually in that, a year of tax cuts would have basically got them back on track.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, give or take here and there, but the fact remains the same, doesn't it? Is that if we don't have adequate infrastructure, that carts $14 billion worth of goods between the North and the South Island every year, there's a massive economic benefit to this. If you do it right, particularly if you invest in a brand new one that is fit for purpose, you could get 50 years out of that.
Yeah.
And so spread that cost over 50 years. Yeah, sure, it's more than what we thought now, but it would be nice to see some long-term thinking from this government. And it's extraordinary, I think, after what we've only had 2 sitting weeks of Parliament, and there's no shortage of things to talk about. No one wants to be in opposition that barks at every passing car, but I've never seen so many cars.